Well, hi, Michelle.
Hey, Claude.
We are back with our second episode of Analyzing Tucker, and we're black. We're black and red, and
Yeah.
here to tell you, in black and white, what we believe. This basically an amazing collection of ideas that Tucker put out, and this is the first. This is Tucker number 1. This is the first one that he produced since he was forced out of appearing for Fox News. And I think that it seemed to me that he really wanted to attack the rest of American media.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that was the target. And of course, he used the dam.
The bombing of
the
Kokova.
bombing.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I
in
think
the Ukraine.
the entire process was exactly about pointing out not only the failure of American media, but the dangers that it presents.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. This morning it looks like somebody blew up the Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we now know. It's not like Vladimir Putin is anxious to wage war on himself. Oh, but that's where you're wrong, Mr. and Mrs. Cable News consumer. Vladimir Putin is exactly that sort of man, the sort of man who'd shoot himself to death in order to annoy you. We know this from the American media, which wasted no time this morning in accusing the Russians of sabotaging their own infrastructure. Bill Kristol, the man who once told us that Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11, immediately denounced Putin as a war criminal and even more savagely compared him to Donald Trump. The rest of the pundit class made similar, clearly coordinated noises. Putin did it! Putin did it! And their reasoning was simple. Putin is evil, and evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. In this specific case, Putin attacked himself, which is the most evil thing you can do, and therefore perfectly in character for a man that evil. That was their explanation. No one who's paid to cover these things seemed to entertain even the possibility it could have been the Ukrainians who did it. No chance of that. Ukraine, as you may have heard, is led by a man called Zelensky. And we can say for a dead certain fact that he was not involved. He couldn't have been. Zelensky is too decent for terrorism. Now, you see him on television, and it's true you might form a different impression. Sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch, a persecutor of Christians, a friend of BlackRock. But don't believe your own eyes. Actually, Mr. Zelensky is a very good man. The best, really. As George W. Bush once noted, he is our generation's Winston Churchill. Of all the people in the world, our shifty, dead-eyed Ukrainian friend in the tracksuit is uniquely incapable of blowing up a dam. He's literally a living saint, a man in whom there is no sin. That's why Lindsey Graham is so attracted to him. They're just two good people, hanging out together and being good. And like all good people, when they meet in person, they spend a lot of time talking about killing people and laughing like friends do. Here's the pair last week.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free,
Yes.
and we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
No, it's
The Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent, Graham says. A smile spreads across his thin, quivering lips as he forms the words. He looks like a starving man contemplating a breakfast buffet. The aroma of death has aroused Lindsey Graham. Thanks so much, replies Zelensky. He feels the same way. See, there's nothing dark here. Just two middle-aged guys celebrating the killing of a population. They don't seem like the kind of people who'd enjoy flooding villages or starting a famine. And in any case, who cares if they are? It's really not your business. Your job is to support Ukraine. Watch Nikki Haley, a Republican candidate for president, explain this principle on CNN.
A win for Ukraine is a win for all of us. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win. We have to see this through. We have to finish it.
See? It's very easy to understand. It is vitally important for you to support Ukraine because it's necessary for Ukraine to be supported by you. Your support is mandatory until it's finished, whatever it is, and whatever that means. So shut up and support Ukraine or else you're in trouble. Back when they still taught logic, statements like this were known as tautologies. Something is true because it is. The more you repeat it, the truer it becomes. It's a self-reinforcing reality. There was a time when tautologies were considered illegitimate arguments, not to mention hilariously stupid. Only dumb people talk like that. Now everybody in power talks like that. Diversity is our strength. Trans women are women. Zelensky is Churchill. It's all self-evidently true. Doesn't need an explanation, and don't ask questions. Sound familiar? Of course it does. That's the pap they're serving us day after day in steaming, lumpy portions. By this point, it's possible that American citizens are the least informed people in the world. Your average yak herder in Tajikistan knows who blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. It's obvious. Does he think some skinny dude in a dress is actually a girl? Come on. That idea would never occur to him. You've got to be lied to at full volume over a period of years in order to reach conclusions like that. And of course, we have been. The media lie. They do. But mostly they just ignore the stories that matter. What's happened to the hundreds of billions of US dollars we've sent to Ukraine? No clue. Who organized those BLM riots 3 years ago? No one's gotten to the bottom of that. What exactly happened on 9/11? Well, it's still classified. How did Jeffrey Epstein make all that money? How did he die? How about JFK? And so endlessly on. Not only are the media not interested in any of this, they are actively hostile to anybody who is. In journalism, curiosity is the gravest crime. Yesterday, for example, a former Air Force officer who worked for years in military intelligence came forward as a whistleblower to reveal that the U.S. government has physical evidence of crashed non-human-made aircraft, as well as the bodies of the pilots who flew those aircraft. The Pentagon has spent decades studying these otherworldly remains in order to build more technologically advanced weapons systems. Okay, that's what the former intel officer revealed, and it was clear he was telling the truth. In other words, UFOs are actually real, and apparently so is extraterrestrial life. Now we know. In a normal country, this news would qualify as a bombshell, the story of the millennium. But in our country, it doesn't. The whistleblower's account ran on a technology website called The Debrief, which you've probably never heard of. The Washington Post had that story, but decided not to run it. The New York Times, meanwhile, just pretended it never happened. On the front page of the New York Times website this morning, there were 5 stories about Ukraine, as well as 4 stories apiece about Donald Trump, trans people, and climate change, the usual lineup. There was nothing at all about how an alien species is flying hypersonic aircraft over our cities. Not one word. So if you're wondering why our country seems so dysfunctional, this is a big part of the reason. Nobody knows what's happening. A small group of people control access to all relevant information, and the rest of us don't know. We're allowed to yap all we want about racism, but go ahead and talk about something that really matters and see what happens. If you keep it up, they'll make you be quiet. Trust us. That's how they maintain control. When Western tourists first started traveling in large numbers to the Soviet Union in the early 1970s, they found that many Russians had a completely warped understanding of the United States. They thought that Americans lived in grinding poverty, in a state of perpetual race war, and were desperate to flee to the freedom and prosperity of the Eastern Bloc. They thought this because that's what they had been told. They had no way to know otherwise. The few Russians who understood what was really going on in the rest of the world had learned about it from listening to shortwave radio broadcasts, sometimes under the covers so the neighbors wouldn't hear. 50 years later, it is bewildering to consider the ironies here. We're the ones who live in ignorance now. The US government has managed to classify more than 1 billion so-called public documents. So at this point, we can't possibly know what our leaders are doing. We're not allowed to know. By definition, that is not a democracy. Yet it's fine with the media. Secrecy is a powerful tool of control. Stop asking how we got so rich. Here's another story about racism. Go eat each other. That's the program. That's how most of us now live here in the United States. Manipulated by lies, silenced by taboos. It is unhealthy and it's dehumanizing, and we're tired of it. As of today, we've come to Twitter, which we hope will be the shortwave radio under the blankets. We're told there are no gatekeepers here. If that turns out to be false, we'll leave. But in the meantime, we are grateful to be here. We'll be back with much more very soon.
But I'm going to let you, always, as I do, first come to, and there's not way to come out with just one idea. There's so much given there. But
Right.
let's start with what you believe you got the most out of this.
Well, it's like you said, I think that this episode was basically the epitome of the story of Oz, the man behind the curtain. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. And of course, with America, there's those of us who are trying to bring the truth are considered the Toto, and we're the ones trying to pull the curtain back so that the truth is revealed of who's actually controlling the buttons and controlling the narrative. And I think that what Tucker was pinpointing, he was talking about the Zelensky and the situation with the dam that Ukraine blew up, that was in Russia and Crimea. And also he talked about the fact that we are seeing life forms all across our skies and even in the sea, and it's not being covered. It's like I think the media is thinking, oh, well, we kind of showed the American people that when we, gave you Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Independence Day. So that's how we'll introduce what's really going on in the world. We'll make it a movie and bring it out to the American people like that. They'll go for that. It'll desensitize them to what's really happening. We won't talk about, that we have alien life form that for the longest time didn't exist. There was no Area 51. And if you believed in Area 51, you were a conspiracy theorist back then. So,
And the truth is out.
right.
And it's on maybe the last page of the newspaper while they're pushing. And I think what is really, really dangerous here is he's exposing the fact that American media, mainstream media, the what used to be what Walter Cronkite would bring you, CBS News, ABC, Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw. These are all people that will be rolling in their graves if they
Right.
really see what their networks are doing. With CNN, poor Ted Turner, we know he's alive, but serious dementia. But if he did not have dementia, if you watch CNN for just a few hours, he would have dementia all over again. Because I think that he would be going crazy to see what they have done with these American institutions of news.
Absolutely.
Journalism has died in our country. We're not even invited to the funeral. But we're looking every day to see the zombies of news, and they are programmed.
Right.
They know that every day there's a narrative controlled by the government. FBI will make sure that social media does not talk about what they don't.
That's
what
right.
They don't want you to talk
They
about.
don't want you to talk about it. So
The
they'll
IRS is going to
censor
go
you.
after you if
That's
you were
right.
talking about anything. DOJ is going to make sure that you're going to be called a terrorist because you're concerned about what's in the books that your kids are learning. These are, and the NSA, who knows what the hell they're doing. But at the end of the day, these institutions and the third or the fourth power, which is the media, has been consolidated in the hands of the Democratic power,
Absolutely.
of the White House, of part of the Congress, and definitely all of the alphabet organizations that are supposed to provide us with security and everything else. They are controlling the media to make sure that the narratives about Ukraine needs more money, transsexuals are perfect, and we should learn how to become like them.
More like them.
You
That's
know,
right.
we need all to become transsexual so that everybody will be really happy. These are the stories, and of course, the end of the world, as of course, you know, the Green New Deal is basically making rich countries poor, and countries that don't care about are getting only richer because they don't
That's
have to abide by rules that are killing their economy. We are in the midst of a real battle, and I think that Tucker's attempt with his first show is to talk about, number one, is the loss of American media,
That's right.
where the Ukraine blows up a dam, but says Russia did it.
And Russia did it, even though it's their own dam.
There's no logic to that.
No, there's no
There's
logic to it.
But American media wants you to know that that's the narrative. They did that.
Right.
You know, just like those drones, they
Absolutely.
did that.
They did that.
And then there are fools out there, from what we're all learning. And thank God, things are happening in the right direction. And I'm talking about Lindsey Graham, where in this expose, he's there, they're celebrating the death of Russians,
Right.
celebrating because all he wants to do is make sure we go to war in his lifetime.
Absolutely.
He needs war. I don't know if it's to make up for his lack of manhood, but I think at the end of the day, he needs war. He
Right.
loves war. He's always loved war.
He has.
He wants us to go to war,
Absolutely.
and I think we're getting tired of it.
Yes,
Because-
absolutely.
Because at Pickens, South Carolina, Lindsay went up to the podium to celebrate Trump, and he was booed off the stage.
Yeah. That's because South Carolinians know that he's a rhino. He always has been. The only time he gets conservative is when it's coming to election.
Exactly.
That's
and,
it.
And so I think that with the messaging that what we saw here with Tucker, he attacked the politicians that keep pushing this helping Ukraine narrative. That makes no sense. That could lead us into the Third World War. They actually, because
Right. Yeah.
we're not secretly, like in Vietnam for many years, we secretly were helping, the Vietnamese to make sure, to try to stop communists. But we didn't do it over, we had the CIA, we did all that secretly. We're not doing that against Russia.
No.
We're telling, hey, Russia, we're sending this to
Absolutely.
Ukraine. We just convinced our idiot Congress to vote another $30 billion while we're not sure how we're going to pay for Medicare or whatever the issues Americans have, but it's okay. We're in control. We want to make sure that Ukraine gets every nickel possible.
Yeah. Hundreds of billions of dollars.
And it's like, we don't need to know what you do with the money.
No.
There's no truth.
It's just money. It grows on
Exactly.
trees.
It's like the $10 billion Bill Clinton got to control the rebuilding of Haiti.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There's no record of what happened to the
No,
money.
no.
And nothing's been done. Haiti looks the same as it was after the earthquake.
That's
but you know
right.
what? Nobody cares because
No.
it's not about that. They're basically magicians because they're showing you something here while on the bottom they're doing what they really want to do.
That's why I gave the analogy of Oz.
It's perfect.
Don't pay attention to what's behind the curtain.
It's perfect because at first we thought Oz was this
Big and powerful on the screen. And
exactly that could give us a brain and a
A
heart and all those things.
courage and
But we had it in us.
that's right.
We didn't need Oz. So I think that those are the elements that are extremely interesting and for Tucker to use his first video to really attack the media. Because what did he say? Oh, no, you're not going to hear that on cable news. What's cable news? Fox
That's right.
and CNN and MSNBS.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Did I get the letters wrong?
No, I think you got it
I got it
absolutely right.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not that smart.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, this is such an important messaging because it's not only, it's a message that shows you how terrible our media is. This is why Tucker was was number one.
That's right.
Because he was the only one that was talking the truth, that was talking about subjects that the others were either afraid or paid not to talk about, whatever the reason is. Those journalists are not, they should they should get their diplomas if they got one, probably from one of those woke universities anyway.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
that's what that's who they are. So it's a very, very dangerous, it's a message that talks about how dangerous we are getting to because as he mentioned, in the 70s, when we were able to get more information into Russia about the Western world, they had no idea what America was all about
No.
because the media was totally controlled.
Yeah. And we
And-
certainly didn't tell our military secrets out there on national news.
No, like Dr. Death.
Yes.
But here we are today, and he's saying it's all turned around. Russia knows more, probably, about what's happening in the world than
And
we
we do.
because we have no idea. We're about to get probably China go walk right into Taiwan, and it'll be accepted
That's right.
because we've now have government confirmation of UFOs, and it's like
No big deal.
there's no story about that.
No, not at all.
You know,
No.
hey, breaking news: there are UFOs have been confirmed by the U.S. government, but let's get back to White Housewives of Atlanta, because that's more important to
That's
see
right.
what happened to Charlene.
That's right.
You know, that's more important than.
Or
this-
the fact that Kourtney Kardashian is married and pregnant for however many times now. That's more important. All of that's more important than what we've got going on in the real world.
And Michelle, if it wasn't sad,
Yes.
as it is, we'd be laughing all the way, but we can't be laughing because it is sad.
Exactly.
It's a sad of affairs, and I'm glad that Tucker is doing this. I'm glad that we have the opportunity of looking at and see how we can better understand, better translate maybe to those who are following him, or maybe those that our viewers are not following. They need to know what Tucker's talking about.
Right.
We're not saying he's going to be right all the time.
Oh, no, no.
You know, we all make
No,
mistakes.
absolutely.
You know, your mistake was to be here with me. But you've been forgiven. But I really think that I'm looking forward to the others that he's done. I'm looking forward to see how far he can take this. I know that in a recent interviews done with Russell Brand, and there are a couple highlights. And even though he hasn't been a fan of Trump
No.
the whole time, but he's recognized something. Trump is right.
Right.
Everything Trump has said when everybody thought he was crazy has been right.
Right.
And he has said an interesting thing in this, we definitely suggested you go to the Russell Brand, is it .com? That's his website?
I believe so, yeah.
And on Rumble, I think he's also on Rumble. In the interview that Russell did with Tucker, there was an excerpt that basically said he believes in the next 10 years or so that Trump will be recognized as one of the most important political leaders in the last 100 years because he's saying things that no other politician is saying.
Right.
The Ukraine war is crazy. And he would have it,
Absolutely.
he would have it over in one day.
Right. Well, and one of the things that Trump was famous for and got so much support is that he's not a politician. Like him or not, Trump has always remained Trump. I was never a big fan of some of his things that he said in the past or done, for that matter, that things that were brought up from years ago. Not condoning any of that. But what I will say about him is he's not afraid to speak his mind and to point out the obvious that a lot of us ourselves see, but we just don't have the resources or the mouthpiece to be able to put it out there. And with Russell Brand, he actually was on Bill Maher not too long ago, and Bill Maher, I mean, my gosh, you talk about a liberal. I couldn't stand him for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
His show, popular, very popular. It used to frustrate me to watch his show. I didn't like what he said, but I still respected and watched and just to have that opposing view.
Because he's not dumb, he's smart.
No, absolutely.
It's always good to understand what smart people are saying.
Right.
When someone is stupid, or you know there's nothing really intelligent going to come out of their mouths, you have no interest in listening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind listening to someone on the left or someone
No.
in the middle. If they have an argument, I may not agree with it.
That's
but
right.
at least if it's well presented and it has logic behind it.
Exactly.
But the logic is gone.
Exactly.
It's gone from
And if you don't subscribe to it, you're a terrorist, a traitor, a bigoted, homophobic, you name it. You're just a very bad person if you don't subscribe to what they're trying to sell.
well,
Absolutely.
we are not.
No.
We are not. We're not subscribing to this. We're watching Tucker. We're analyzing Tucker's messages. We're trying to find the messaging behind the messaging, because when he writes, he's saying a lot of things at the same time. And it's not always out there straight. And I think it's interesting to go find these gems in the middle of what he's talking about. He took a hit on Nikki Haley.
Absolutely, yeah.
He took a big hit on Lindsey
Lindsey
Graham.
Graham,
And that was a few weeks ago when he did this. So actually, the crowd is catching up
That's right.
to Lindsey's craziness
Right.
and warmongering and everything else you may want to call it. Butt kissing, whatever you want to say. I don't know. I'm sorry, Christians out there. I didn't mean to say that. But I had to get the point across. At the end of the day, we are better as a society when guys like Tucker are allowed to speak. Thank God for Elon Musk and allowing him, Twitter, to be able to
Absolutely.
do this. We don't know how long that can continue. But at the end, we will continue to do this as they come out, because I think I'm enjoying doing it. I get to sit next to Michelle. That's a good thing. Any last points?
No, like I said, it's just pay attention to the little dog that pulls the curtain back and exposes the real Oz.
Yeah, and Tucker's the dog.
That's
he's
right.
He's
He's
a dog.
the little dog, and he's pulling the curtain back. That's right.
Exactly, and he's a big dog as far as I'm concerned.
Yep,
A great dog.
absolutely.
That's our show for today. We will be back with another show very shortly, and we hope you enjoy analyzing Tucker. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.